Welcome, everybody. This is the official demo as of October 2023 of the Insurance Toolkits platform, specifically for Equis Financial. So we will go ahead and get started here. So when you guys first log in, this is going to be what we consider to be the homepage, which is the actual toolkit. Now, there's two steps that we always recommend that you do prior to your first day in the field or prior to your first day using our platform. The first one is going to be found here in your account settings. So if you notice, we have a few different tabs at the top. Of course, you can log out. You have access to our CRM. You have access to the leads portal. And then you have access to your account tab. So if you click on the account tab here, it's going to bring you to some of your personal information where you can then adjust your email at any time, your first and last name. Maybe you get married. You can change your password right from the platform, as well as this little box down here that I like to reference, which is the preferences box. So if you are face-to-face or telesales, you can just adjust this accordingly. If you are doing telesales, maybe a given week, a given day, or permanently, you would just simply click this tab once to enable it. It'll confirm that it was updated by notifying you in the upper right-hand corner. And what that does is we take care of all the telesales parameters on the back end, so you don't have to think about that. Whether that be product availability, face amount restrictions, meaning some products that are sold face-to-face, you can sell a higher face amount than if you were to sell it telephonically over the phone, as well as any sort of signature process restrictions. And what I mean by that is certain carriers offer email signature. You can do voice signature, text signature, those sorts of things. If there's any restrictions or if a certain carrier is privy only to one of those signature methods, we will notify you with a little red dot, which I will show you here in a moment. So if you do telesales, it is nice to have that enabled, as well as your default state. So your default state can either be A, the state that you sell in most often, if you do sell in multiple states, or B, just your home state. So you can change your default state here at any time, and that's always going to be the state that the quoter defaults to, just to try to save you guys some time in the field. So once you've kind of adjusted your account preferences, go ahead and click on your logo up here in the upper left-hand corner. It'll bring you right back to the home page. The second step is going to be going to your Customized Carriers tab, which you'll find right here in the middle, amongst other tabs that I will get to here momentarily. So we will click on Customized Carriers, and you will notice here you have the ability to further restrict the carriers that are offered to you as an agent through Equis. Meaning you may not be contracted with every single one of these carriers. Maybe you only have 3 to 5 contracts. You are able to go in here and specifically turn off some of the products by just disabling them, by kind of reversing what we did in the previous step. And you turn it from enabled, which is yellow, to grayed out, which would mean it is disabled. And what that means is when you're running quotes, these products with these specific carriers won't show up in the quoting results, A, to save you some time, but really just you're not scrolling through carriers that you can't sell anyways. So this is where you're going to be able to hide and show those companies for your specific account. If you scroll down a little bit more, we have what's called a light and embedded HTML. So to kind of jump over here to another section, if you click on your settings tab right here in the middle, we bring you to this page here, where you have a link that you can actually share with your clients. And I will highlight this link here and copy it. And I will show you guys what that looks like here. So if I go and share this tab now, you will see the Equis Financial logo is going to be right here in the corner. And this is something that you can share with your clients or prospects rather, and they can actually run quotes for themselves if they're very, very evident that that's what they want and that's what would make them comfortable. You can share a link with them. And the reason, going back here to the actual page that you guys would be looking at, if I go to Customized Carriers and scroll back down here to where it says light/embedded HTML, you can actually disable carriers that those clients would then either see or not see, depending on how you have your carrier set up when they're running quotes for themselves. So it's a very good sales tool. A lot of times clients don't really know, or I should say prospects don't really know the difference between 2 different carriers. They may just be more focused on the one that's cheaper on a monthly premium basis, but they may not know some of the benefits that it comes with, the customer service. They may not know, the difference of a preferred versus standard or modified. They may not know all the differences between the products and what the carriers offer themselves outside of just the face amount and the premium. So you as an agent, of course, having a fiduciary responsibility to do what's best for the client, you know what's going to be best for them, even if they may be a little confused on that point. So what you can do then is when you're sharing that link with your clients, you can disable the carriers that you don't want them to see, or that you're not contracted to sell. And then if you scroll down even more, you can also restrict the companies and products that your agents underneath you would see. So this is really three of the same, just allowing you to customize the carriers for your own account, for the account that your prospects would see if you share that link with them, and then for the carriers that your agents would see if they were underneath you in the hierarchy. So not to overcomplicate that, but customizing your carriers is definitely an important step. And once you have done both of those two steps, adjusted your account preferences, customize your carriers, you are actually ready to go and use the platform. So we'll get to these here momentarily. This is where you're going to spend the bulk of your time on our platform, right? For most companies like Facebook and Instagram and social media companies, they want you to stay on the platform as much as you possibly can. But our goal here with Insurance Toolkits is to keep you on our platform as little as we can, because we want you to increase and optimize your efficiency so you're spending more time with clients doing the work that needs to be done. And the pre-qualification can hopefully be one of the quickest steps to your process, which has been our goal this whole time with Insurance Toolkits. So I'm going to load here. I'm going to skip down to this little section here where it says clear fields, load, and save. Just to give you guys an idea of what a quote would look like, and then I'm going to run through each part. This is kind of what you're going to expect to see on a typical basis when working with clients in the field. So if you notice here, if I direct your attention to the upper left-hand corner, you're going to have your coverage options. So it's going to be either A, your face amount. So in this case, we're running a final expense quote. So I put $25,000. Or you can quote by premium. So if I have a client who doesn't know what they want from a face amount perspective and what they need covered, but they do have a more clear idea of their budget, you can put in, let's say, $75 as a premium on a monthly basis, and you can run the quote that way. But for the sake of the demo, I'll just do $25,000. The coverage types you can see here is grayed out. You can change it from level to guaranteed or modified. You can adjust the coverage type here, but because our system is fully integrated with each carrier's back-end underwriting guidelines, as well as the actuary tables for every product for every carrier across all 50 states, we work with the carriers in real time to make sure that our underwriting information as well as our quotes match theirs in real time. So there's never going to be a discrepancy. We want you to be able to rely on our system and trust in it. So because of that, if you just leave the coverage type box alone, we are always going to show you what carrier is going to be best for your client first, the highest rating class, and then we will kind of go down after that. But kind of, I'll get to that in a moment when I'm running the quote. After the coverage options, we're going to get right into your about the client information. So this is just your typical information of your sex of your client, the state, the birth date, height and weight, which is optional, nicotine use, as well as payment type. So to touch on the birthday really quickly, you can run a quote only based on their age. But of course, you're going to get more accurate if you use the actual birthday, because certain carriers will sometimes do a rounding. So if you're 55 and turn 56 in a few days, that policy may be issued at age 56, and certain carriers will actually retro date your policy, and they will, if you're 56, they can actually get an issue date of 55. So there is some discrepancies that you can have there if you only put in the age. So we always recommend putting in the birthday to make sure that you're getting the most accurate quote possible. The last thing you want to do is run a quote for a client at age 55 and the policy gets issued at age 56. And even though it may be only a $4 per month difference in premium between those two ages, that could be enough of a red flag to push a client back far enough that you actually lose the sale. So if you have the ability to use their birthday, we recommend you do. Height and weight here, of course, it's optional. But again, each carrier has a build chart. What that means is your clients must fall within a certain weight range based on their height. So you can sit with a client who's perfectly healthy, no medications, no health conditions, no driving history or any bad driving history, no criminal history. But if they fall too far below or too far above the requirement that they need to be at for their age and their height, then that can either cause a modified or graded policy, or could even cause a decline altogether. So to avoid any of those sorts of conversations, I would always recommend to put in the height and weight if you can. If you may not feel comfortable asking, a good tip is to see their driver's license, because a lot of states, not all of them, but a lot of states do have that on their driver's license. Or if you have any of their medical records that you can look at for some of their medications, usually their height and weight is listed on there as well, if you don't want to ask them directly. But keep that in mind. And then nicotine use. So you can select between none if they don't smoke anything. Of course, cigarettes and other nicotine products, maybe like chewing tobacco. Maybe they only smoke the occasional pipe or cigar, and then other nicotine products, maybe like vaporizer pens and those sorts of things. The reason that this is important is because a lot of carriers, Mutual of Omaha being one of them, as of October of 2023, allows your client to smoke 24 cigars per year, but still qualify for a more preferred rating class rather than paying as a tobacco user, which can be 2 to 3 times more expensive for the same policy price, or the same premium rather, the same face amount. So you don't want your client to be paying 2 to 3 times a higher premium for the same face amount when they could be paying less if you were to select, let's say, occasional pipe and cigar use only, versus just putting them as a tobacco user. So those little nuances that we have in our platform really give you the competitive edge compared to other agents who just simply don't know, aren't aware, or don't have access to the tools to do that. And then lastly, you'll see a payment type box here. So of course, it's going to be most ideal if your client has access to a bank account in the United States. But we know that in the sales industry in general, especially with final expense, or any type of sales, but more specifically with final expense, not everybody has access to a bank account. So we want to make sure that we took care of that ahead of time. So if they only have access, let's say, to Direct Express, maybe they're on Social Security, let's say they only have access to a credit card or some sort of prepaid debit card, you can just click that little drop down and select between the few, or those few options. So when you're running quotes, we're only going to show you the carriers that's going to accept that payment at the point of sale. So you're not going to run into getting to the end of the application to then find out you can't even close the deal because your client doesn't have access to that payment type. So we structure these questions in a way that by the time you run a quote, you have all the boxes checked to make sure that when you get to the application, your client's pre-qualified, they know what they're getting, how much it's going to cost, and that they can actually pay for that product and sign that product with the given signature methods that are available. So you can eliminate any sort of red flags and errors and time wasters that will come up in a typical sales conversation. So the left-hand side is more or less your quoting information. Now the right-hand side is where our intuitive system really comes into play, which we have a full-time team managing, which is our actual pre-qualification or our underwriting platform. So as you can see here, I have this pre-filled just to give you an idea of what it looks like, but I'll go ahead and take some of these off by just simply clicking the X. Now, we always recommend with adding the medications first, and I'm going to use metformin as an example, and I'll show you why. By going here and type in metformin, you're going to see a few different types of medications come up, different strains of medications. We're going to go ahead and just click on metformin because that's going to be probably your most common. But depending on what your client takes and what they are prescribed, we wanted to give you all the options available, so you do have those at your discretion. Now I'll click metformin, and you'll notice that as soon as I click it, this indication box comes up. Whether that's they're taking it for either diabetes, diabetic nephropathy, or diabetic neuropathy, you have the ability to then further drill down to the question of the client and say, hey, Mr. Smith, you're taking metformin. Are you taking that for diabetes, diabetic nephropathy, or diabetic neuropathy? You can start to build a little more rapport there and some trust with the prospect. So if I select diabetes, then you have 2 more options. These are what we call either fringe questions, or sometimes underwriters refer to them as drill down questions, which is essentially as it sounds. You're just drilling down further into, okay, well, my client takes metformin for diabetes, but we need a little bit more information to really gauge and do a risk assessment to make sure that the risk is worth taking as the underwriter for said carrier. So the data first fill, of course, is going to be when the client was first prescribed or first filled that medication, which is probably going to be quite some time ago, unless they just started taking a medication. Let's just say in this case, they started taking metformin back in 2016. And then if they still take that medication, when was their last use or last fill of that medication? If it's now, as of today, you can just leave this box checked. If they stop taking it, then we would deselect that box and you could pick whatever day they stop taking it. I'll leave it selected for now. So you'll notice here that those some of the nuances up here change. So again, we have metformin for diabetes. They currently take it. And then you're just going through and asking the client the following questions. And each medication will, of course, have a different set of fringe or drill down questions to then ask the prospect. Uncontrolled diabetes in the last year or in the last 10 years, yes or no? We'll say no. Mr. Smith, has your diabetic medications or the dosages for said medications changed in the last year? We can say no. And then this is obviously a diabetic specific question in relation to the A1C levels. Was your most recent A1C reading less than 8%? Now, the reason our system is very intuitive here and why it's so trusted in the industry is you'll notice here we're at the very last set of questions. If I say yes, then we have added that medication successfully and the prompts are over. But if I go back to that very last question and I skip ahead here, if I say no, you're going to see it prompts another set of questions. Now it's saying, okay, well, is the client's most recent A1C level between 8% and 8.6%? So now we can kind of further get down there. And then I'll say yes, and now we've successfully added that medication. But the reason that's important to note is because two clients can both be diabetic, both taking metformin. One can get approved, one could get rated or declined because it's not just what they're taking, but it's how long have they been taking it? Is their diabetes under control? What are the resultant A1C levels from the medication that they've been taking? How controlled is that? Has their dosages or medications changed in the last year? If it has, that usually is an increased risk because it shows a sign of uncontrollable results from the medication, which can show instability. So those sorts of things are what underwriters look at, which is why our system takes all that into consideration up front during the pre-qualification. Another one that I like to go over is marijuana. You would think that that would be over in the nicotine smoking section, but its own medication, because if I type in marijuana, you will see here, you can either have that entered in as a prescription or recreational, because we want to know why our clients are taking it. We don't want to be naive and neglect the fact that we know people smoke or digest marijuana. So if they smoke it recreationally, we can click recreational, and then we can go through the same prompts. Or if it's a prescription, we would select that same thing. But if you notice here, for a recreational use, I click next. It's going to ask, is recreational marijuana legal in that insured state of residence? So these sorts of prompts are why our system is intuitive enough to make sure that we're going to optimize the results and only show you carriers that your client is fully eligible and qualifies for. And we show you those from the best rating class first. And I'll get to that here in a moment with the results. But I do like to touch on those sorts of things because those come up in the field and oftentimes cause agents to have some confusion. And sometimes confusion can allow you to just want to put something to the side rather than we want to be clear and upfront with this so we're not getting any adverse underwriting decisions. So once you've added in, as you can see here, different medications for different health conditions for different reasons under different time frames, we can also add some health conditions. So health conditions can include anything that would impact underwriting, to include medical, driving, and criminal history. So what I mean by that is, from a driving perspective, let's say that my client has a DUI. Maybe they got their driver's license suspended either because of a DUI or DWI, or not because of a DUI. Or maybe they only have a DUI and their driver's license was not suspended because of it. So we have different options here. So in this case, let's say that my client got a DUI and had their driver's license suspended because of that. We will go ahead and click on the first option. When did that happen? We can say October of 2018, or maybe we could do May 17th of 2018. It's going to ask, had they had more than 2 DUIs in their lifetime, yes or no? And then we've added that in successfully. You can add things in like felony. Maybe your client has a felony. If they had a felony, one where they convicted of that felony, we can say maybe 2020. Click finish. And then you can add other things as well, like migraines. Basically, anything that you would put up here would be health conditions that your client is not medicated for. So migraines, maybe your client lives in a nursing home. Maybe they live in an assisted living facility. They could quite possibly be in a wheelchair. And again, whether that's confined to a wheelchair, meaning a more permanent disability, or not confined to a wheelchair, meaning a hip surgery, some sort of maybe a bone fracture, whatever the case may be, that's only requiring them to be in a wheelchair temporarily, or they're not confined to it and it restricts their activities of daily living. So we can say not confined, click maybe they were treated today. Was it because right here, due to a fracture or a bone or joint surgery? We can say yes. Do they need help with any of their ADLs? This is a very a common, like a kicker question that can cause some disqualification. If they do need help with ADLs, that typically shows sign of a higher risk for the insurance carriers from a risk assessment perspective. So we can say no. And then was it due to a chronic illness or disease? We'll say no. So you can see you can get pretty granular. Don't overlook medications. Don't think, oh, this one's only for high blood pressure. They're going to be approved. I'll forget about it. If you have access to it, add everything and anything that you can. A good sales tip that I like to give is when you get to this portion of the meeting, which is kind of the meat and potatoes, if you will, we want to make sure that our client is being fully honest and fully transparent with us, because anything the client does not decide to tell us, the underwriters will. And we would rather know about it ahead of time. So when we're doing the pre-qualification, we know exactly who our client's going to qualify for. We don't have to second guess it. We don't have to submit the application, then cross our fingers to hope it gets approved. We submit the app. We are rest assured that because we're using our Insurance Toolkits platform, which is a trusted software, they're going to get approved for so-and-so carrier, and we can move on to the next client and keep the ball rolling. Because the insurance industry is a cash flow business, so we need to be spending money on leads and closing deals, and also getting those deals pushed through underwriting and then paid back to us as the agent. And the shorter the amount of time in between those 2 points, the better and more efficient and the better longevity you will have. So to kind of draw your attention down here, once you've added in everything, medications, health conditions, all those sorts of things, we're going to then click Get Quote. So it's not just going to take into consideration the client's personal information up here and their face amount and coverage type, but all of these things that we've added here, which is a pretty extensive list: marijuana, diabetic, high blood pressure, chronic pain, but not just one, 2 high blood pressure medications. They're not confined to a wheelchair, a felony, and a DUI. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. So when we go down here to the search results, keep in mind, we're only showing you results for carriers that will approve your client based on the underwriting information entered, as well as the nicotine use you selected, as well as the payment type that you selected. So you're going to see a smaller list compared to what you normally would, because this is a rather large case. So in these cases here, you'll notice that a lot of the carriers down here that are grayed out are because of something that you entered on the underwriting side. Now, to give you guys a little better example of what you might run into on a regular basis, I'll take off some of these medications. Maybe I'll take off marijuana and I'll change it back to bank draft, just so you guys can see what both of those would look like. And we'll say that my client does not smoke any sort of nicotine. So again, the medications list a little bit smaller here, and you're going to see much more carriers, much more products available to you. Again, we list the carrier name first, the monthly premium based off of the $25,000 face amount that we ran, the coverage type. So we give you not only the name of that carrier's final expense product, but also the coverage type they would get approved for. So in this case, Mutual of Omaha's final expense product is called Living Promise, and they would get approved level. Columbian Financial Group, CFG, Classic Elite, that's the name of their final expense product. Foresters, theirs is called Plan Right, they get approved preferred. Corebridge Financial is called simply now Legacy Max, so on and so forth. So you can see we make sure that when you go to the carrier's application, which you can get to right from this little button here that says eApp, and all you're doing is clicking on the eApp link, and we're going to take you right to that carrier's page. So if I click Mutual of Omaha's eApp, it's going to bring me right over to this page here, and you will then at that time log in using your agent credentials, your agent number, those sorts of things. So you have to be contracted with that carrier, of course, to use the application, but we give you the link to go directly to it. And we're going to always list them in order from best to worst. So the best rating class, which typically corresponds with the cheapest price, will be first. And the more we scroll down, you'll see the higher the price gets. And then you'll start to see over time, it'll go from preferred to immediate to level to standard to modified to guaranteed issue, graded, all those sorts of things at the bottom. To touch on some of these little icons here, the gold stars, we put those on the results to offer and show you guys which carriers offer true Social Security billing for your clients who are on Social Security. So if you just hover over the icon, it will say this carrier offers Social Security billing. That's great. If you see a little question mark icon, if you see any icon you're unfamiliar with, you can just simply hover the mouse over it and we break down what it is. So in this case, Transamerica, immediate solution standard, if you want to know why it's standard versus maybe preferred, well, because our client was treated with metformin for diabetes, for Transamerica, that's an if ever sort of medication. So if ever means that if they were ever treated for at any point in time, they can qualify for standard. If you scroll down here a little more, you'll see a green money sign here. The money signs are indicating any sort of compensation related warning that we want to notify you of. So in this case, Americo, $112.55 per month for Eagle level. But just so you know, for Eagle level, the commission cut is up to 15% for clients between the ages of 50 and 59. And it does increase the higher they go. So it's a higher percentage if they're 60 to 69 and 70 and so on and so forth. So if there's any sort of notification that we need to make you aware of, we will put that there. And then you'll notice here, this policy is guaranteed issue from Corebridge Financial. And there's a little information icon here, which we give you the grading schedule. So your typical grading schedule is usually a 3-year grading, like 30%, 70%, and then full on after that, or whatever the carriers offer. But in this case, a lot of them are different. So for Corebridge Financial, if you hover over that little information icon, the way that you would read this is if your client passes away within years 1 and 2, the beneficiary is going to get ROP, which is return of premium, plus 10% interest. And then years 3 and beyond, the client's beneficiary would get 100% of the face amount. Sometimes you'll see years 1 is 30%, years 2 is 70%, years 3 and beyond is 100%. There's some carriers like Prosperity has a pretty intricate grading schedule. So instead of you guys having to study and memorize and have all sorts of printouts, we just give that to you right here. Hover your mouse over it, and we take care of the rest. If we go back up here to the top, you'll notice a little red dot next to the EAP button. So Mutual of Omaha, these are little red dots that we give you for any other warning. And like I mentioned in the beginning, sometimes it's because of telesales, maybe it's because of a medication, and we want to let you know, hey, take some extra notes. Whatever the warning is, we make sure you're aware of it ahead of time. So in this case, we hover over it, and our warning is telling us that the telesales signature for Mutual of Omaha must be done by email. So if your client doesn't have an email, that's obviously a very evident disqualifier that you can't even write the policy with Mutual of Omaha because your client has no way to sign it, which would then obviously result in you going to the second best carrier, which in this case would be CFG. So we let you know, hey, ahead of time, the telesales signature must be done by email. In addition to that, Mutual of Omaha, it's more of a warning just so you can be aware of it. They do track the IP address of the signer for the application. So if your client is not either in their home address or near the home address that you listed on the application, that could cause some adverse, that could push it to underwriting, that could cause a little bit of issues on the back end. So we want to make sure, hey, when your client's signing this, make sure they have an email before you close them on it, and make sure that they're going to be signing it either in or around their home address as to not cause any sort of delays. Maybe it gets pushed off and pending underwriting just so they can clarify the address. We prefer that the application is submitted, and companies like Mutual of Omaha are on a 24-hour commission cycle. So you should, in theory, be able to submit that application today, have the cycle run overnight, and get paid the following day for that sale. And the quicker that we can do that for you guys, the better. So we try to give you those extra tidbits of information that other people would not have access to. And the last thing on this page here is the compare and the drop down. So I'll touch on the drop down first. If you click this little arrow right here, we give you even more information to kind of further simplify the process. So $88.69 is what that client would pay per month for $25,000 of coverage. On an annualized basis, if you get your client to pay maybe once per year, most carriers offer a discount. Typically, the less frequent that the client pays, the greater the discount they get. If they pay only once per year, that's not only good for you because it eliminates the chances of getting a chargeback. It's not only good for the carrier because that client is set for the year, but it's also good for the client because they don't have to worry about any missed payments and having their policy possibly go into a pending and lapsed state simply because they changed to a different bank account and forgot to notify you as the agent. So if you do have the ability, if the client can afford it, to pay annually instead of monthly, we give you that rate here. And then if you want to upsell your client to some accidental death coverage, typically that's double the face amount if your client dies in the event of a covered accident. It's only going to go from $88 a month up to $95 a month. So what you can tell your client as a sales tactic is, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I can actually give you double the face amount. So from 25,000 to 50,000 for only $7 more per month. Does that sound fair? And that's a very good way to kind of pitch that accidental death coverage, because if they do pass away in the event of an accident, their beneficiary gets twice the face amount that they normally get for only $7 more per month. And then the same logic applies here with the annual rate. $95.30 per month comes out to a little more than $1,070 per year. So if your client pays once per year or an annual premium instead of monthly or quarterly, they get a little bit of a discount here. So that's kind of how you would read this information. Like I mentioned, we do have a CRM up here in the upper right-hand corner. So if you click on push to CRM, a little box is going to pop up. So you can put in, let's say, the test client's name, the date that you added them, the premium. All this is pre-filled for you. You don't got to think about it. If you want to add in their address, you can type in 123 Main Street. Maybe their phone number is 123456789. Their email, face amount. You can even add some notes. Wife wants coverage in 3 months. She is currently out of work. Little things like that. So now when I click save, we'll hop up here to the CRM very briefly. I'll click on CRM, and the CRM is a customer relationship management system, and ours is fully HIPAA compliant. As of October of 2023, we are working on revamping this, so there will be an update to come. But for the time being, again, as of October of 2023, this is the current CRM within the Insurance Toolkits platform under Equis Financial. You can track your statistics here if you're on the dashboard, monthly, quarterly, or annually, how many clients you have, how many sales, or aka the premium, the annual premium that you wrote off of them. You can set some reminders here, the title of that reminder, when you want it to go off, the date and time. You'll, of course, get an email. The reminder, you can say 10 minutes before, a month before, a week before, an hour before, however you want. You can have it recurring weekly. Maybe if you want to do an annual review, you can say John's annual review. You can have that maybe 9:15 a.m. every year on October 17th. You can set those sorts of reminders, and it'll save into your system. You can delete them at any time. You have a calendar that you can view any sort of events or anything that you have coming up, any sort of reminders or appointments. You can kind of look back in time as well on a monthly, weekly, or a daily basis, depending how you look at it. And then, of course, if you click over here to the Clients tab, this is where you're going to see all of your clients' information listed from either date that you added them, sorted by name, so alphabetical, the premium that you wrote off for them if you want to see your most valuable client first from a premium perspective, product name if you want to kind of group the carriers and products together. This also helps with kind of auditing your own book of business to see if you're running majority of your products through Immediate Solution Preferred, which is Transamerica, or Living Promise, which is Beach of Omaha. If those are kind of your preferred carriers, you can start to kind of adjust your business model, maybe trying to qualify for some trips and things like that. And then you can also sort by disposition. So the dispositions here, call back tomorrow, leads, not interested, sold, those sorts of things. But I'll just leave it as date added. And the way that you would adjust these is you can click on this little expand button right here. So if I expand on that client, we have all of their personal information, any appointments in the past or appointments coming up in the future. You can schedule one here if you'd like. All the medical history that we added, if you guys remember earlier with that test client, we have these 3 medications here, as well as any notes. So if you remember, hey, my annual review's coming up, I forgot that client's wife wanted covered in 3 months. Hey, Mr. Smith, is your client back to work now? I know that you said she was interested in coverage and she was out of work at the time, and so on and so forth. You can kind of translate that to another sale. You can also transfer clients within your agency or your hierarchy. So if you have agents listed underneath you, you can transfer it. If not, then you can just ignore that portion. You can load the quote file back into the platform. So if I click load quote file, it's going to automatically open up this page here and pre-fill exactly as we had entered it when we first filled that client's information out on the phone. And then you can also edit that information if you want to change the disposition to interested, not interested, lead, call back tomorrow, or sold. Or you can create an entirely, you can just say, bad lead. You can change it to whatever, have different colors, click add, done. and now that client's going to be dispositioned as a bad lead. You can do all sorts of things, or just delete the client altogether. So we do offer that CRM. Now you can manually enter in clients here by clicking that little plus button right here. If I go to the clients tab, I can manually enter. Or if you have a list in a CSV file, you can import it by clicking the little upload arrow right here. Click on the arrow. It's going to import the CSV. Just make sure that the column headers on that CSV file match what we list here, because that's the only thing that will be imported. If it says products name instead of product name, we won't import it. If it says addresses instead of address, it won't be imported. So just make sure that these are all identical to your file. Then you click select a file, and then it would upload right into the system. Or if you're using another CRM with a third party, you can actually export that list here and save that to your computer. And I'll go back here to the quoting platform. So you'll notice here there's another drop down in the upper right hand corner. Final expense, you can also switch between term. And if we kind of go back down here to what I mentioned earlier, you have the clear field button, you have the load button, and the save button. So if I click load, I'm going to load that same quote that we just ran. And if I wanted to, let's say this was a brand new quote, if I wanted to save said quote before moving on, I can either A, save it right here, or B, I can just clear the field and move on to another client altogether. But it's an easy way if you're running a final expense quote, and for whatever reason, somewhere along the way, you kind of identify that a term policy might be better for that client. Instead of having to re-ask those questions, we would just simply click on term, click load, and then you just select whatever file that you saved in underneath, and it automatically loads it right back into the system. It takes you 3 seconds, and you don't have to ask the same questions twice. Now, to kind of wrap up the demo here, we have a quote compare tab, which if you click on the quote compare tab, which you guys may have saw earlier next to the carrier's names, you can actually compare quotes side by side. So typically on the quoter, you're going to be comparing which company you're going to close that client with. And then on the quote compare screen, let's go down to, let's say, Americo's HMS, which is their home mortgage series. Let's say that I want to compare $100,000, $150,000, and $200,000. Instead of having to run 3 quotes, I would just type in those 3 face amounts. I could put in my client's birthday that we ran, let's just do 1980, click compare quotes, and you'll notice that it's going to put them all side by side. So we have different options here. You can do, 10-year term. It goes up to 40. I don't believe that Americo offers a 40-year. I think they go up to 30. So 30 years, and that's also heavily dependent on the age of your client. So 43, 30 years from now, they'd be 73, which is within range for a term policy. But we have all the products that the home mortgage series offers. So it's going to be your term 125 as well as your term 100. So if you look here, the $100,000 face amount, $100,000 face amount, 150, 150, 200, and 200, and then we give you the corresponding monthly premiums for that as well. As well as for the term products, the little information icon, we show you the living benefits they offer. So in this case, the home mortgage series through Americo offers terminal illness rider, critical illness, and chronic illness. So you can compare and contrast those between different products on the quoter page, or we also listed here on the quote compare screen. You have the ability on the quoter screen here, not to jump back too much, to run return of premium only. This obviously only applies for term because on the final expense page, the term is unidentifiable. We don't know how long the client's going to live. So because of that reason, we can't do a return of premium in terms of like a set year. But for term products, you can, because a 10-year term policy, basically, if you have a return of premium, that's going to be based on 10 years. And then to jump back to the quote compare screen, a lot of agents like that because it's a bronze, silver, gold, or your 3-option close. It's a good sales technique. And then to finish off here, we have both a drug lookup and a health cheat sheet. So if you want to look up specific drugs prior to a meeting, I'll say age 50, maybe the client is on metformin, but not just metformin. Maybe they're on metformin. We'll click on this combination here, and it's going to say, of course, like I mentioned earlier, the underwriting results are going to be less accurate without the exact date of birth. Let's say that's for diabetes. They started taking it last 2 years ago. I'll just jump through these really quickly. Yes, and no. Now when I click look up, we're not just going to show you Obviously, the quota screen is where you're going to get more of a encompassing their entire underwriting background. But with a specific drug for a specific medication on a specific health condition, based on whatever questions that you answered, we're going to give you the name of the carrier and what they would qualify for. So in this case, Americo, all three of those products are declines, and it's because of uncontrolled diabetes in the last 6 months. Whereas the rest of the term carriers here, that again you can find under your customized carriers tab, will approve them. So for example, American Amicable, Survivor Protector product, standard 30-year. Forrester, Strong Foundation, 30-year. So those are all good to go. So perfect. That's great. My client mentioned some other things that weren't too concerning ahead of time, but now I know this is going to be a good meeting, or however you guys want to look at it, as well as the health cheat sheet. Maybe your client has an amputation due to cancer. We would click on amputation due to cancer, and then we're going to give you the name of the carrier as well as how they would treat that from an underwriting perspective. Most people think cancer equals decline, which a lot of the times that's true. But if you look on the term side, okay, that's going to always be true. But if you go to the final expense side and click health cheat sheet, and we enter that same health condition, amputation due to cancer, you're going to see here that whereas term is for a lot of things like felonies, uncontrolled diabetes, DUIs, a lot of those things that are kind of knockout questions within the last 10 years, final expense is a little more lenient on them. Now, of course, the age range is only 50 to 85 years old, but you have some more options here. So that's going to be the differentiating factor between the two products is final expense is a little more lenient and a little more open to a broader range of underwriting, health conditions, medications, those sorts of things. But then you just kind of scroll through here, and we gave you the different rules and how they would treat that medication. So, for example, Forrester's Plan Right. If your client was treated for that amputation within the last 3 years, they can qualify for a basic. Now, if your client has ever had cancer more than once and you answer yes to that question, then it's an automatic decline. If your proposed needs help with any activities of daily living and you answer yes, automatic decline. And if they need are confined to a wheelchair or a motorized mobility device, they're also going to be automatic decline. But if they answer no to those three questions, your client can actually qualify for a basic product or basic plan with Forrester's Plan Right. And those are the sorts of things that we're helping agents in the field be a little more aware of. So you have a lot more options that you may think of if you were just trying to write term. Of course, it's all situational. And then we already touched on both the settings page and the customized carrier page, which leaves the leads tab as our last unexplored portion of the demo. So you do have access to our in-house leads that we generate. These are real-time leads. These are final expense leads, Medicare leads, and ACA leads that you can buy both shared and exclusive that are all real-time. You can buy either county-specific or statewide orders. So if you wanted to buy, let's say, an exclusive final expense statewide order, you click this drop down here. You would select whatever lead type that you want that you guys could see on your end. Select the state, quantity, your name as the agent, your agent email. If you want an email notification when you get a new lead, turn that on. If you want to have those leads put into your CRM, just or enable this as well. We notify you via text message if you want. When a new lead comes in, put your phone number here. If you want to use like a imbb.com or imagebb.com or any sort of website that allows you to upload a picture of yourself that you can have a shareable URL, you can actually put that URL here. And when that prospect fills out the lead form and hits submit, we're going to send them a follow-up email with your name, your phone number, your email, and your picture so they can kind of help build that rapport right off the bat. If you want your clients to then call you, if they get that confirmation email, you can put your inbound phone number here. And then if you guys work with Go High Level at all or have a CRM with them, if you don't, you could ignore this. If you do, you can copy the API key, which is found typically in your settings page here, and we can have your leads actually sent to your Go High Level account as well. So this is the campaigns page where you would launch real-time campaigns. You would manage funds, of course, under the Manage Funds tabs. You would just click Add Funds, whatever amount that you wanted to add, let's say 5,000, and then you click Confirm. And it's going to charge the automatically charge the card you have on file. If you want to use a different card, you can click Manage Cards and add a new one. And then we also offer a leads marketplace, which is all of our unsold inventory, or otherwise known as our aged leads. So it's an interactive heat map here based upon volume and inventory, of course. So the hotter and the more red that a city is, or a state is, or a section is, or a county is, the more leads that are available. So if I select, let's say, Georgia and Florida, I can zoom in and select specific counties. You can see it'll start to adjust based on what we're selecting. I can select based upon what's going to be available is the lead type here. So if I want to only look for a specific type of lead, I can say maybe exclusive final expense. And then if I want to see, you know what, I only want leads that are 30 to 90 and 90 to 120 days old. Now you can start to see that the interactive heat map is adjusting. Now I'm going to maybe select these counties instead, and I'm going to click search, and then we're going to show you the state, the city, the age of the lead type, the availability, and the price per lead. And then you would just simply select, let's say you wanted all four, you would select 4 as your desired quantity, add to cart, and then you would just purchase them right from this platform. And the lead marketplace leads are instantaneously downloadable, so they're available immediately. And then, of course, the real-time lead campaign is generated for you in real time, and then the leads are then delivered to you in real time. So most of our campaigns, rather all of our campaigns, are fulfilled within 24 to 72 hours after the order is placed. Last but not least, for those of you in the field that have any questions, billing questions, account questions, underwriting questions, you can actually use this little tab right here, which is our live chat feature. So if you click on this little box here, live chat box will come up. You can start a chat with us at any time when we're in the field. When you're in the field, if you're talking to a client, you're in the home, whatever the case may be, and we will answer those questions for you in real time, typically within a few seconds. So pretty extensive. If you guys do have any follow-up questions, I'm going to put my email in the description of this video, or you can head over to this live chat feature here if you would like to set up a one-on-one meeting to maybe go over something more in depth. But other than that, I definitely appreciate your guys' time today, and that is going to conclude the demo of the Insurance Toolkits platform for Equis Financial as of October of 2023. So thank you guys so much for your time, and have a great rest of your day.